Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the WTF1 wrap powered by MoneyGram. I'm your host, Dre Harrison. With me as ever is the wonderful Charlie Williams. Hello, Charlie. How's it going?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Smug. I am smug. For those who follow us on social
Oh, here we
media
go.
and saw the prediction chart, your boy is eating good tonight. Like that, it was a proper roast dinner. The only man to call Sergio Perez winning today was your boy. And yes, that was certainly a race of all time. I'm not going to pretend like this was an exciting course of events because I'll be lying to you, and I'm honest with my audience. I'll be lying to you if I said that was a hugely captivating Grand Prix. But we're going to try and break down some of the action and some of the winners and losers. For those who may not have seen the news, if you maybe shut the TV off early, which to be fair, I wouldn't have blamed you. Fernando Alonso has been given a post-race 10-second time penalty for his original 5-second tyre penalty, which was for an incorrect grid position off the start. He served the penalty, but his rear jackman touched the back of the car as he was putting the rear jack in before they could work on it. So that was an incorrect penalty served. So that was another 10 seconds on top of that. If you're suffering deja vu from the Esteban Ocon incident from Bahrain, yes, you'd be exactly right. It's a carbon copy of that, essentially. So he's been given a 10-second time penalty. It's dropped him from third to fourth. It puts George Russell on the podium. So Merckx gets their first podium of the year. Good for George. He was there. He was solid. He held off Hamilton on the faster tyre and made it work. We'll talk more a little bit about Mercedes later on in the day. But Charlie, what did you make of that race first and foremost?
It was all right. It was all right, wasn't it? I'm not going to sit here and start saying about the Red Bull dominance because otherwise, by the end of the season, I'm probably going to want to cry. So I think we can focus now on how close that midfield is. I think it's incredible. I mean, we were talking before we went live, and we both said we think it's one of the closest midfields we've seen in a very, very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's certainly something to that. We'll break that down a little bit more in the winners and losers section in just a second. I see you in the chat. I know there's a lot of Alonso fans that are not very happy about this. For what it's worth, I completely agree with you. It is a joke that it took the FIA that long to determine that there was a second penalty that was warranted. I don't believe they should have waited 30 plus laps and then another 10 minutes after the checkered flag, after the podium celebration, for them to announce that penalty. I am in full agreement with you. I don't think that was good officiating from the FIA. If that's in my opinion anyway. I don't think that's a good look at all, personally. But rules are rules, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Even if the rule can be a bit crummy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was. I mean, they did Ocon's pretty quickly in Bahrain, so I don't know why they couldn't have done the same with Alonso this week. But rules are rules. We have to follow the rules.
Indeed, indeed. Also, guys in the chat, you might have time for a couple of questions at the end. Send them in the chat. Also, you could send us as well what you thought was the MoneyGram send of the race for the best overtake on the day, and we'll pick a winner out later on during the show. Let's get into some of the winners and losers of the grid as we go up and down the field. First up, we're going to go with AlphaTauri on this one. And God bless him, Yuki Tsunoda is trying. He's really trying. Back-to-back 11th place finishes for the Japanese youngster. And his teammate Nick de Vries was down in 14th. Pretty quiet day from him, but Yuki's trying, man. You saw, I mean, I'd argue one of the highlights of the race, Charlie, was that fight with Kevin Magnussen for the final point. He held on to that temp for a very long time.
Yeah, I would agree. I love how we still got our little, like, Yuki radio message as well with that. Rah! It was toned down a little bit, but compared to usual. But yeah, I'm not ready to say that I'm going to eat my words after insisting that Yuki would be absolutely done over by Nick de Vries this season, because I still have got faith in Nick de Vries. He is a rookie, despite what a lot of people would argue he is not because of his experience. He's still an F1 rookie. But I mean, you can't deny the start that Yuki has had this season. It's as if he's taken the words that he's been getting from Franz Tost and he's really taking them by the reins and going for it this season. He's done a really good job.
Well, he said it on. Well, we said it on Friday's show. Franz Tost was at the same time was also throwing his engineers under the bus, saying that
massively,
saying that this car lacks everything it needs to be competitive, and yet Yuki Tsunoda is definitely being competitive with it. I think if you're gonna be critical of AlphaTauri as a team, I don't think you could be critical of Yuki Tsunoda. I think Tsunoda is more than holding up his end of the deal. In regards to his future, in regards to how AlphaTauri are doing as a team right now. I think that was another really solid performance. I think Haas probably have a slightly faster race car than them at the moment, given everything we've seen so far this season. And I think you've got to call... I think I'm kind of splitting the whole winners and losers argument. I'm going to call this one a wash because I think Nick de Vries was pretty mediocre, but I think Yuki was definitely a winner here today. Just for a valiant fighting effort is what I would say.
That's called sitting on the fence, Dre. That's called sitting on the fence.
It's called nuance, Charlie. It's nuance.
No, I think Yuki did enough for us to call them winners today. I think he did. I'm very impressed with him. I think he's had quite a tough start to his his F1 career. So I'm really happy to see him do a good start.
Yeah, definitely a lot to that as well. Hopefully Nick gets up to speed a little bit quick. I think the man's under a bit of pressure himself. I think there's more than enough possibility that their seats are both potentially up for grabs. So again, race by race, we've got to see how we go. But Yuki's certainly holding the upper hand so far. Williams up next, and this was again, I think one of the lowlights of the race. Was Alex Albon acknowledging he had I think it was some sort of brake failure on his car, and then driving straight past the pits. And then just continuing to circulate afterwards. I got nothing for you on that one. He ended up obviously being one of only 2 DNFs on the day. We'll get to the other one a little bit later. Logan Sargent was in the wars, eventually finished in 16th. He had... the man was scrapping, Charlie. You got to give him that. He was in the thick of it with both McLarens, and Zhou was in there. I think he was fighting with Hulkenberg for a good while as well. Certainly a lesson in racecraft for the American.
I'd prefer not to discuss his battle with McLaren if that's okay with you, because it makes me very sad and I'm already probably going to cry through the stream. So let's get to that later. But yeah, I think the whole weekend for Williams, it didn't really come together for them, did it really? Like, they had a really good start, I think, in Bahrain. And this weekend, I mean, Logan had a really disappointing day yesterday as well. I think it lacked something for both of them this weekend. I mean, I think Albon would have done all right had he not had the brake failure. But I think
he was running about 12th at the time.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, Logan had a good battle. I wish that there was more that had come from them again, like in Bahrain, because I do think they were off to a really good start, and I do still think that they have significantly improved from the past few seasons. So that would be something to watch, definitely.
I don't think they're last anymore. Is what I will say, and that for Williams already is an improvement on last year. Logan came off the loser in all those fights. I know he tried an alternate strategy. He was one of, I think, only 2 people that started on the hard tyre. I think Hamilton was the other one, and then was on the mediums for the majority of the race after the virtual safety car. Just lost out in the end. I think he ran out of tyres more than anything else. I think he drove well for what it's worth. It was a fighting effort. Albon, I think, was running 12th when the brake failure happened, which was a shame. Probably I would say Williams is probably on the losing end of the scale this weekend. Performance was a bit down compared to where they were in Bahrain, and a technical DNF is never going to put you in anybody's good books, I would say. So, yeah, Williams probably a loser overall on this weekend, and I think it's probably going to be the same for Alfa Romeo up next. Valtteri Bottas, the only man a lap down in the end, was dead last of the 18 cars who finished. I think he had some kind of floor damage. I believe he drove over Piastri's broken front wing on the first lap of the race. I think it's just one of those really unlucky days for Bottas. I think as I saw video footage of him running over Piastri's broken front wings, I think that might be a part of the reason why he was so far down the order. I don't think it was on Raw page. Zhou was 13th. They're still a really hard team to evaluate, Alfa Romeo, because I said I think the midfield is so close right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Go for it. Yeah, you speak your mind on it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Bottas has kind of been like off the pace all weekend, really, and he said in like media interviews that he hasn't overly felt comfortable in the car or something. He isn't getting everything he could out of that car that he did in Bahrain, and they were just kind of. I am a bit not disappointed because it is only the second race this season, but they were ones that looked like they were, really going to be around the same as they were last year, or maybe even better. But they've just kind of come to Saudi, and that's been knocked down a peg or two, really. But whether it was the conditions or, I don't know, it just, again, they're another team that it just didn't quite come together for them this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's another loser for Alfa Romeo on this one. Zhou in 13th. It's not a terrible day by any stretch for him personally. If he's in the scrap of the midfield with Haas and Williams, that's probably not what you'll want when you finished 6th overall last year. You're probably thinking about trying to get in the points more regularly rather than just the odd occasion. I think I mentioned it in our pre-season and our podcasts then that their development towards the end of last season put them nearer the bottom of the field than the top, and I think that's starting to come through now. I know Bottas was unlucky, but as you said, Charlie, spot on. I think he was a couple of attempts behind Zhou in qualifying, and I think Zhou was just the better driver this weekend, unfortunately, and that was before, obviously, Bottas's unfortunate incident. Still waiting for final confirmation on whether that was part of the reason why Bottas was so slow in the race, but still probably a losing grade for Alfa Romeo on this one. Let's get into our friends at Haas. Haas, they were in the wars all day long in the midfield, fighting for points. Kevin Magnussen ended up finishing 10th, so Haas are officially on the board. So they got their first point of the season with K-Mag in 10th. A nice comeback after a pretty drab Bahrain, and Hulkenberg was 12th, fighting with Logan Sargent and Yuki Tsunoda, and his own teammate at times, all afternoon. I mean, we got to give our friends this, Charlie. They were certainly entertaining.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed with them, actually. They kind of seem like they've almost solidified their role in the midfield. Not finally, because we're only on the second race, but after testing, we thought there was something, and then we got to the Bahrain Grand Prix, and it was kind of a bit like, oh, that wasn't quite what we were expecting. So I think that Saudi has obviously suited them a lot better, and that those glimpses that we saw in testing have kind of come to life this weekend. So yeah, I'm really happy for them, actually.
I think it's a small win. I think it's. I would give them. I would give them a win. I mean, first point is a first point. That's certainly a step in the right direction compared to where they were in Bahrain, where they didn't get any points at all, and Hulkenberg's race was ruined after pretty much one lap, and K-Mag never really looked like he was going to trouble the scorers. That's certainly a positive step for Haas. I still think I'm a bit concerned about them because, for me at least, they have a fast car over a lap. Because, again, Hulkenberg's challenging for Q3, as is Magnussen. They're in that sort of ballpark where they can make Q3. I don't think they're as strong in the race. And I think that could be a problem for them as the weekend goes on. But I think there's certainly some promise. And I think K-Mag and Hulkenberg are pretty evenly matched, which I think is also good for consistency as well. So I think there's certainly some positive to take away from Haas this weekend. Again, first point is always a win. Again, tight midfield, every point is going to matter, Charlie. So, a good weekend, I would say, winner for them.
Yeah, I would say so. I think for them, if they can just quietly get by this season, it's kind of existing and laying low and just picking up the odd point when they can, I think that would be a general win for them.
I agree. A visual walkthrough in the chat as well, saying Haas is like a strong midfield team right now. I think they're smack dab in the middle of the field right now. Visual walkthrough. I'm with you on that one roughly. Like challenging for maybe outside points. I think one of the teams that we're going to get to in a minute, maybe about 3 or 4 minutes time, are going to probably be a trouble when it comes to fighting for minor points. I'll give you a hint. They drive in pink. Well, temporarily anyway. Yeah, briefly. So that one. Now, I know the chat's going back and forth a lot about this team, so this is going to be a fun one to discuss. Charlie, it's your favourite. It's McLaren.
Have you noticed how I haven't got a hat on today?
Probably for the best.
I have this thing that I wear merch because I think that it gives the team good results. Like that's like it's like a superstitious thing. And then last week or the other week before in Bahrain, it did not work. So then I was like, right, nah, I'm not doing that anymore. Yeah, don't talk to me. I don't want to talk about it. I want to just cry. Again, I'm hosting a party at 8 p.m. for all McLaren fans and Alonso fans, to be fair. We can all we can all have a little, eat some cake, cry into a pillow and just get on with the night and just be sad together, I think.
Crying party at Charlie's house. Everyone pull up. I'll get the big bar of dairy milk. We can all have a cry together, apparently. Yeah, it was a rough day at the office. Oscar Piastri 15th in the end, and Lando Norris 17th. McLaren just weren't at the races, by the looks of it. I mean, didn't they have to run Norris through the pits in extra time as well before the safety car came through?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Like, I just feel like at the minute they are just one big sigh. We are the team that nobody wants to be at the moment. Fans, you look at, it used to be a joke. Last year, it was a joke about Ferrari fans. I feel like this year it's going to be McLaren fans. I'm a very sad little papaya bean, and I don't like it.
And it's such a shame as well, because Oscar Piastri
Massively.
did a brilliant job in qualifying yesterday. P8 on the grid, only second ever qualifying session. Breaks his front wing 20 seconds into the race, and it completely kills him. And his race ruined pretty much straight away. It's brutal, and the thing is, I don't think this car is slow.
No, I'm the same. I think it's got something there, but it's not just shining through.
Yeah, it's like I don't think it's slow. I think there is. I mean, like, Norris was just dreadfully unlucky in the race, and then even then his qualifying session, he made a driver error in qualifying and got knocked out in Q1. Yeah. Oscar Piastri has a brilliant qualifying session, but then has the opposite and has a sloppy race because he damages his front wing 20 seconds in, falls down the order. Fun to see him come through towards the end, but again, alternate strategies and whatnot. 15th place. That's not what you sign up for at McLaren.
I mean, no. So this is no offense on Williams, but at one point we were fighting with Logan. Like Lando was fighting with Logan. He had DRS. Logan didn't, and we still couldn't get past him. Like, that's embarrassing. That's really, really, really sad. Especially when you consider, like, when you look back at like 2020 and even like parts of 2021 where as a fan, I thought that we were really making some good gains as a team, and now that just seems to have all come down crumbling on top of us. But
yeah, I think there's two factors in that. I think one, the Williams is very fast in a straight line, generally speaking. I think they have the same trait where they don't generate a lot of downforce, so their top speeds are very high as a result. Williams have never been easy to pass in a straight line unless you've got a big power unit advantage. I think Merckx had one of the weaker power units here this weekend anyway. I was looking at speed traps, and Red Bull are in a different league, and we'll get to them at the end of the show. But Mercedes were struggling for just sheer grunt over the course of the weekend, and I think that's what led to the McLarens often getting stuck. And it took Oscar on an alternate strategy and Logan, who had to go 30 plus laps on mediums to get to the end. I think he ran out of tyres, and I think that's what opened the door for Piastri. But Norris couldn't beat Sargent in a straight dogfight. That is not good. Is that fair to say, Charlie?
Very not good. Very, very not good.
I'm
I'm mad. No, I'm not mad.
Are you counting down the days on your calendar? I know there's 6 weeks to go, but are you counting down the days to the Baku upgrade now? Like I know it's April 30th for that Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's just me being really pessimistic at the moment, but I still don't even have I don't have that much hope that those upgrades are going to bring us that much. No, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. I'm ready to write off this year as a McLaren fan, I think.
Really?
After
2 rounds?
Yeah, because I just feel like we're really bad at making a comeback like that when it comes to upgrades. Like, when the car's bad, it just kind of stays bad, and it's kind of just please look forward to the next season and get it sorted then, because I mean, we've got Lando that is a world-class talent, which I say every single podcast. And I mean, his talent's being wasted at the moment. But I mean, I digress. That's a whole different carton of milk.
Now, before we restrain Charlie, let's move on to Alpine. Like this was I think their first real, round where we can get a base on them as to where they would fit in the field, because their race in Bahrain was so erratic, with Ocon racking up penalties and Gasly having to come from the back of the field. They ended up 8th and 9th on the day this time around. Ocon and Gasly 8th and 9th, just a couple of seconds apart on the road. Is this where Alpine are? And if that's the case, that actually might be a little bit disappointing, given that Alpine want to maintain 4th place. That was their clear goal, and it was keep 4th, try and make gains on the big three. What's happened here, by the looks of it, to me at least, is that Aston Martin's overtaken them, and they're still not really challenging Aston Martin and Mercedes where they would be to start thinking about maybe top 6 runs and potential podiums down the road, Charlie. I think they're smack dab in the middle of the field.
Yeah, they're kind of just existing at the moment, aren't they, really? Like today's race, you just didn't really see anything of them. I kind of forgot they were there for a little bit. But I think they're going to be like the 2022 McLaren. They're just going to, not be, well, it's best of the rest, isn't it? But not so much, just smack bang in the middle. And Aston Martin have just leapfrogged them, and they've just got to deal with that, I think. I don't think it's going to be disappointing, because I mean, I did a article on Pierre. He said that actually watching how much Aston Martin have developed was actually quite inspiring, because he didn't think that would be quite, it'd be possible for a team to make that many gains within a season. So whether they're going to be one of the ones that take a look at, their concepts, their car, and maybe come up with some more upgrades throughout the season, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think they can be disappointed with where they are, but I wouldn't be pleased either.
I think there is a clear hierarchy starting to form. If you look at the race results, it's almost like Noah's Ark. Both Red Bulls, Alonso in a George Russell sandwich, with Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, and I think Stroll would have probably been somewhere in that zone if it wasn't for his DNF.
Yeah.
Both Ferraris, both Alpines, and because one of the top 10 fell out, Kevin Magnussen came into the top 10. So I've got a feeling that might be the pecking order. It might be Red Bull, Aston Martin, Mercedes, maybe Ferrari. That's going to be up for debate. And then maybe Alpine 5th, which probably would be disappointing for Alpine, given where they were at the start of the season and what their expectations were. But they were there, and, well, Gasly's competitive, so I guess that's a plus as well in its own right, that he can run with Ocon straight away. That's one of the things I feared about Gasly going into the season, but I'd say a wash for Alpine. We'll call it a draw on this one. Is that...
Yeah.
Maybe a minor loser if such thing exists. We'll go with that.
I don't think loser. I think you're right. I think they're just in the middle. They're just there.
Yeah.
They're just happy. They're not sad.
Should we talk about Mercedes? Let's talk about Mercedes a little bit. This was an interesting one. George Russell, first podium of the year for Mercedes in 3rd after the Alonso post-race penalty. I think Russell had a great weekend. Like he spearheaded this team brilliantly. Was close in qualifying. Out qualified a Ferrari. Out qualified an Aston. He said it himself after the race. He was really happy with that. And now he's got on the podium. I know he won't have the big fanfare that comes with it, because it's a post-race podium celebration. Maybe he'll take a page out of Carlos Sainz's book from a couple of years ago. Do his own little mini celebration afterwards. But he was 3rd. Hamilton was 5th. I guess, given how despondent they were going into this weekend, it might be a small winner for Mercedes, I guess.
Yeah, I do really feel for Lewis at the moment. I know he's been quite open about how dreadful this car is to him, and about being disconnected from the car. But I do actually think he did a really good job today. There was a point where I thought he was going to, overtake Russell, which was misled, by the way, because they said that they'd asked George to move over, and they confirmed afterwards that wasn't actually the case. They hadn't asked George to move at all.
Nope.
So I don't know. I don't really think. I mean, we're going to talk more. I don't want to say too much because we're going to talk about this in our podcast later, aren't we, Dre? But I think that Mercedes are being a little bit over dramatic at the moment. I don't think they're as bad as it's making out that they are. And I think if at the moment, if what they're fighting for is, you know, with the Ferraris for the odd podium, I think that's okay, because no one's going to get ahead of Red Bull at the moment at all. And Aston Martin, like I say, have just leapfrogged everybody, and they're up there fighting as well. So it is what it is. And I think they've just got to be happy with the small gains that they're getting at the moment.
I guess, but I also think we evaluate Mercedes in the context of winning championships. That's the problem, and they are determined to get back to the front of the field. They're not going to be sitting home thinking, oh yeah, 3rd and 5th, that's a good weekend. They're going to be thinking, well, how are we trying to win? And I know that sounds almost impossible at the moment, given how strong Red Bull are, and we'll get to them obviously at the end of the show. But I'm not entirely convinced that they're going to be delighted with 3rd and 5th. Like, this is a big team, and they need to be acting like such. I think that's probably part of the reason why they might have been so melodramatic about where they're at and how much they're struggling, because this is a dynasty of a franchise that have come through the last decade, and they're not here for 3rd and 5th. They're here to win championships. So I don't think that this mentality of being content with 3rd is going to do them any favors in the long run.
No, but I think there's being content, and I think there's being, I don't know what an appropriate word would be to describe them, but it's almost like they're being too negative about their team now, and I don't think that's the way to be. I mean, you always get parts. There's always teams that struggle to make it back on the top. You've got Red Bull, you know, through that whole of Mercedes dominance, they were working and they weren't getting that car right to get back at the top to fight with Mercedes. You've got McLaren. They used to be at the top. They haven't been there for a very, very long time, and they're struggling to get back up there. Williams, you know, like there's a lot of teams with a lot of history that have been at the top. And I think, you know, I don't think any of them walk away and think, oh, I'm so happy with 3rd. But I think there's got to either be a point where you stop moaning about it and do something about it. In the kinder words of Christian Horner in Drive to Survive. People will know what I'm talking about. I can't say it live because otherwise I'll probably get fired. So I think there's a fine line, I think, between being too negative and just kind of getting on with it.
I think they're a big community team. I think they're big on channeling the positivity of their own fans. I think it helps when they've got Lewis Hamilton, the most popular driver in the sport, in their back pocket. And I know they get a lot of crap for that on social media and what have you. But, you know, I still think that Mercedes finishing 3rd and 5th every weekend is not going to be enough for them. And I think this was still a good weekend given how down they were on themselves. And they've clearly taken some step in the right direction, but I still think they're a long way behind where Red Bull were, given how badly their main protagonist's race was compromised, and that was Verstappen's. But we'll agree to disagree on this one. We'll talk about it more on the podcast later. Ferrari, they were sort of just here. Like, they just existed. I think it was the most quiet 6th and 7th place I've ever seen out of the prancing horse. Like, they were a little bit unlucky on pit stops. I think they lost out during the virtual safety car in their fights with Aston Martin and Mercedes, and then they just kind of sat there, really, and they just couldn't really do anything. They were there. Does that make them a loser, Charlie? I don't know.
I would say I would probably call them a loser this round, just because of how much they hyped up that they had a lot more banked in the locker that they weren't quite bringing yet, and I didn't see any of that on track today. I don't really know what happened. It was looking fairly positive at the start. I think, you know, Charles was making good moves and the overcut worked really well with Carlos and Stroll, but then the safety car came around and they just kind of got stuck there. I think they're in a similar pace with Mercedes rather than Red Bull, which is somewhat disappointing because I think we're all kind of banking on them to bring a championship fight for us this year. It's quite clear that that's not happening. So again, it's not the midfield, but they're like the bottom top 3, aren't they, I suppose? Or would you have a top 4 now?
I think it's a
top four.
I think it's a top four. I think it's a top
Yeah.
four. I think they're close to Mercedes and Aston Martin on paper. I'm still not entirely sure on the order. I think Aston Martin might be the best of the bunch right now. I don't know how much of that is Alonso making the difference, but
Yeah.
they're not like this was meant to be the round where Ferrari were meant to be stronger compared to Bahrain because they went well here last year. Sainz was 35 seconds off the win and Charles Leclerc was 43 seconds off the win. That ain't good enough for Ferrari. They're a loser in my mind on this one. So that's where I sit on that one. Aston Martin. Now, I want to send our MoneyGram Send of the Week to Lance Stroll for that fantastic overtake on Charles Leclerc early doors around the outside of the hairpin. I was a big fan of that one. I know Yuki Tsunoda did that last year as well. I was a big fan of that move. So Lance Stroll gets the MoneyGram Send of the Week for that fantastic overtake on Charles Leclerc. So I'm going to go with that one for best pass. Mixed bag. I'm going to say something controversial here. I'm putting Aston Martin down as a loser because they're like Fernando Alonso drove a great race, should have been third on the day, should have been a comfortable third, and unfortunately their jackman let Alonso down in the pit lane. There's no getting around it. Harsh call as it was, rules are rules. And that's 10 extra seconds on top of a penalty that Alonso didn't deserve. And then Stroll's car fails on a technical retirement with, I think it was a brake failure. So I'm putting Aston Martin down as a loser. Like, if they are truly going to be in a top two fight with Ferrari and Mercedes, having only one car make the flag is never going to go down well. And I think Alonso was let down today. How do you feel about it, Charlie?
Yeah, I kind of get your point there, to be fair. I hadn't really thought about it like that because I'm still in like my Aston Martin hype moment, I think. But I'm just thankful that there is a different team that's actually up there fighting. I mean, I feel like I say this a lot, but I'm honestly not a massive fan of Fernando Alonso. I appreciate him. I love his driving style, everything like that. But when he took the start, like the lead at the start, I was so excited. I was literally like screaming. It was the first time since 2012, wasn't it, that he'd led a race?
I think so.
I believe, yeah. But then obviously he got hit by the penalty, which was lucky, and then he got hit by another penalty. So he did an Ocon, so that didn't help. Although it wasn't really it's not his fault, is it? It's the team's fault, I suppose. But I don't know.
But it's also Alonso's fault for lining up in his boxing correctly at the start of the race.
Yeah, do you know, Ocon said that it's actually really difficult to see where you are. So I don't know if they've released where Alonso was, but whether he was too far forward or left and right. Did you hear anything? He
was too far to the left. They showed a replay during the race. He was too far left out of the left-hand side of his box. I get it. The cars are wider than what they used to be because these hybrids are bigger than previous generations of F1 car.
Yeah.
But it's okay for 19 other drivers on the grid.
Yeah, but isn't it weird that that's happened now? Like, 2 races in a row with two different drivers.
I think the FIA has also said they're going to crack down on this penalty a lot because they don't like a lot of people that have been moving around in the box and whatnot. So I think they're cracking down on it, and I think that's why they hit Ocon with it in Bahrain as well. So, like, Alonso didn't help himself with that minor penalty, but again, his team also let him down in the pits, and then a technical DNF is a technical DNF. So I think if we're going to evaluate Aston Martin in the context of being a top team now, you can't make those sorts of mistakes because you're going to get punished. I mean, yes, it's still 12 points, but Mercedes outpointing you by double digits this weekend, nearly. So. Yeah. Like this is the fight they're going to be in now. They're not fighting for 6th or 7th anymore. Really, they're going to be fighting for possibly 2nd in the Constructors' Championship. So yeah, I've got Aston Martin down as a loser on that one for me. Final team, it's Red Bull. I mean, that was a beating. There's no other way of really describing it, Charlie. It was just. It was just another breezy day at the park for Red Bull, really. Perez winning comfortably, 25 seconds ahead of the nearest car on the podium that wasn't his own teammate with Verstappen, who tried, got up the field and got up to 2nd, didn't really have the pace to take Perez on. I guess that's something.
Yeah, I mean, that Red Bull is just an absolute rocket, isn't it? This is going to be like the leading theme, I think, every race weekend. But goodness me, it's just so quick. But I think what their kryptonite might be is I think we're going to have to keep an eye on the fireworks between Mr. Verstappen and Mr. Checo, because that fastest lap thing was really quite interesting. And in the cool down room afterwards, Checo did not look very pleased that Max was allowed, or as he assumed allowed, to go for the fastest lap and take that from Checo. So I think that could actually cause some fireworks this season, and that might be the reason why Aston Martin end up getting some race wins and things this season.
I'm not reading too much into this.
Oh,
Perez is number 2. He's a de facto number 2. He's gonna have to get used to this. Like, you can't control Max Verstappen behind the wheel. You can't. It's been proven over the years at Red Bull that Max answers his own signal, basically. And if he was going to go for fastest lap, he's going to go for it. And ultimately, the team can't stop him. And it's something that Perez is just going to have to get used to, unfortunately. I don't like it, per se. I don't like that Max has now gotten to the point where he's basically untouchable within his own team. But he's going to keep doing this. He's got a championship to fight for. And if he could try it, he will. Like, that's what racing drivers do when the visor goes down. It's a shame for Perez. I do feel a bit bad for him in that sense, because he drove an excellent race today, and you can only beat who they put in front of you. But I think this is how it's going to be with Red Bull going forward. I don't know how you feel about it, but...
So do you think that Checo might end up refusing a few Red Bull orders? Because, I mean, you say, like, Verstappen's going to be fighting for the championship. Realistically, the person that he's going to be fighting in the championship is his teammate. So, neither of them are going to want to back down if they've got a championship to win. So that's what I mean. I think after Brazil last year, I think that Checo is going to put his foot down a little bit and be like, nah, no. It's going to be like multi-21 Seb all over again.
I disagree, because I don't think Perez is on Verstappen's level. So I don't think it's gonna.
That car is.
The car is, but I think Verstappen is a lot better on paper, and I don't think there'll be too many situations on track where Verstappen will have to deal with Perez being a threat for the win. And not from in front of him anyway, because this was a freakish weekend that Max had to start from 15th. And don't get me wrong, Perez was good this weekend. His pace was good. But I think in the long run, I don't think this is going to be as big an issue in the long run, because I just think Max is just a stronger driver, and I think that will dictate the terms of engagement. But I think that's what will make it interesting. I hope it does anyway, because I mean, on paper, this race was not the best. As far as the way I see it, I thought it was a bit of a nothing burger, and if you were not a fan of Mercedes' dominance in the previous few years going up to 2023. Then I hope you like dominance with a different shade of colour, because that's what this basically feels like at the moment, and it's going to take a lot to have anyone bring down Red Bull as far as I'm concerned. I mean, again, final thoughts on the race, Charlie, before we get out of here?
Should we give it a rating?
Yeah.
We go for a rating.
4.
I'm going to give it, a 4. I'm going to give it I'm going to give it a 6. I think I give Bahrain a 6, and I don't think it was any more exciting or less exciting, so I'm going to go for 6 again.
Yeah, I think it was. I think 4. I think the staying power of these races are going to boil down a lot as to how quickly we get bored with Red Bull dominating. I think the shock factor of Bahrain might have saved them a little bit on that one. But I think that will wear off as the season goes on. At least that's how I look at it anyway. And
if you're a Red Bull, a Red Bull fan, you're going to be like, it's a 10 out of 10 every week.
Of course. Fantastic, everybody likes dominance when their favourite team is the one at the front.
Of course.
That's how it goes. Also, Pratik, yes, we did see Stroll's overtake on Sainz. That was probably the highlight of the race. We gave it the MoneyGram Send of the week. It was a fantastic overtake. Shame that Stroll wasn't able to finish probably in the top 5 if he was able to continue, which it's a shame for him, really, coming back from the wrist injury and what have you. But that will do it for the WTF1 wrap powered by MoneyGram for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Do stick around on the WTF1 network, because we got the Race Review podcast coming up tomorrow morning with me, Charlie, and Harry Benjamin. So we'll look forward to that. Subscribe, obviously, on Apple and Spotify, where all good podcasts are at. Search up the WTF1 podcast. You can't miss this. But until then, with much more content to come, I've been Dre Harrison. She's been Charlie Williams. Until then, sayonara.
Bye.